Right, so the problem. I think we've been talking about APT, so I can go through this kind of quick. Today's cyber attackers are utilizing an increasingly sophisticated set of evasion techniques. I think that is said quite often just to make you feel better about yourselves. There is nothing terribly sophisticated about the evasion techniques that they're using. I mean, it's stolen apart. I did a very big proof of concept. So I work for Palo Alto Networks. We're a firewall vendor, a security platform vendor. You can see my marketing guy smiling at the back. And we've been around since 2007. And we introduced a new firewall. So we introduced a fantastic new firewall that was the darling of Silicon Valley, and it sort of spread around the world. We had about 1,000 new customers every quarter, and we're doing phenomenally well. We've got about 13,000 customers right now. We're the market Gartner Magic Quadrant leader, and we've done phenomenally well. Based on the technology that basically monitors all 65,535 TCP and UDP ports all the time. It then proves the applications to itself. This is entirely different from every other firewall on the market. When you start working for Palo Alto Networks, there is sort of a fog vanishes away from you. And you start to realize, oh my God, nothing works. So evasion techniques, when we look at malware, when Palo Alto looked at malware and looked at the data of how the malware was sort of spreading itself around, what was it doing? Was it using sort of, if you ask an IPS vendor about evasion, they start talking about overlapping headers and fragmented attacks and slow down and that sort of stuff. Oh no, they were doing FTP on port 443. So I'm technical, by the way. So that's one evasion technique. So anyway, I went into this giant financial institute, and half of you would probably turn pale if you found out who. Anyway, and this guy, he had spent hundreds of thousands of pounds, potentially millions, and he had his legacy firewalls, let's call them to be politically correct. He had his market-leading IPS, he had his market-leading URL filters, and obviously, because they had lots of bandwidth. Anyway, because I'm sad and lonely, I opened up my laptop, and the first thing it opens up is Facebook, and it said, blocked. This was very sad. So I was on their guest network, and I bet him £5 there and then that I could get out in 3 minutes. So I went on the internet, downloaded something called UltraSurf, and I was out in 3 minutes, past all this stuff, past everything else. That's pretty dumb. The elephant in the room when it comes to evasion techniques is SSL traffic. One of the things that Palo Alto does, and I'll stop waving backwards and forwards in a minute when I calm down. One of the things that Palo Alto does is we do all these POCs. So we try and encourage people, take a look at our file, put it on the network, it sits there, it sniffs the traffic off your network, and then we produce you a nice little PDF, and it's what you would have won if you'd have bought the right firewall as opposed to another one. We take all that data, we put it in a pot. So we've got like a pot of 1,600 companies, and we can see sort of about 40% on average of all the traffic going through a corporate network, through their firewall, is SSL encrypted. So, you think SSL, well, that's just my banking stuff, isn't it? No, it's your searches, it's your email, it's hacking tools, it's file sharing, it's also, everything uses SSL, right? So if your firewall's not actually inspecting, I know it's not unique to Palo Alto, but if your firewall's not actually inspecting SSL, it's not actually controlling the protocols that are going through it. And what is the sole job of a firewall? To control the protocols going through it. So they say evasion techniques are simple. You want to upset yourself, go home, type into YouTube, evade checkpoint, evade ISS, evade sourcefire. You will see very, very simple and very, very painless ways of evading them sort of technologies. What we've all done is techniques on rely on whack-a-mole approach. Yeah, so I'll skip over that. But basically, vendors, we sell vulnerability du jour. You may have spotted this if you've been around a while. Worms, ooh, let's get that one. Yeah, let's worry about that. Oh, we need a new product. Big 2U box, put it on there to deal with, I don't know, denial of service, all good. Anonymous, oh, we need another one. What about this type of virus? What about I love you worm? What about APTs? And you've laid up products and on top of each other, and all the fears have been there, and you've sort of said, oh, and you sent your management reports with bar charts on and pie charts, and that looks really good. But you have not necessarily been 1 ounce more secure. And that is because the complexity involved, the amount of training involved, the amount of information involved sort of devolves that sort of problem. And you're left with a great big long list of reports that you can't do an awful lot with, and even if you did, you wouldn't know what to do with them anyway. And it hasn't solved the problem. The root problem, and we'll skip the bottom bit so I can keep on time with this slide. The root problem is that the IT, if I stood up here and I'm going to point fingers at the Saudi Armaco. I'm going to point fingers at RSA, maybe, if I remember to do it, or Sony, and all these big hacked attacks, right? Right? Take a step back for a minute. Do you think, for 1 second, that Sony, Aramco, I can't pronounce it, sorry. Sorry? Help me? Aramco. Thank you, madam. These guys, do you not think they had a firewall? Do you not think they had antivirus? Do you not think they had IPS? Do you not think they had sandboxing, fancy pants sandboxing technology that us vendors are trying to sell you right now? Of course they did. Had it all. You read there's a Bloomberg article on these guys getting hacked. They also had, and I bet not many people in here have this, an air gap. Yeah? But it wasn't really an air gap. So we'll talk about this one a bit later on. But if they had all this stuff, and they had probably a lot more stuff than a lot of people in here, and they still get hacked, they still lost access to 30,000 machines. 30,000 machines had their hard drives flattened on what was an air-gapped network. So this was a network not connected directly to the internet, or so they thought. Chances are that you are going to face the same sort of problem. So when people get hacked, we always blame the end user. Oh, you're dumb. Oh, you bought the wrong thing. In truth, the security vendors have sat on their backsides for the last 15, 20 years selling the same old tat in the same old way. This is why Palo Alto Networks is Gartner Magic Quadrant leader and blah, blah, blah. Back to the sales pitch. So, Target, another one, 170 million, 110 million to 170 million credit card details stolen. It's nearly twice as many people as in the UK. That's like everyone, babies and children and old women, having their stuff nicked twice, right? In a single hack. Do you think Target did not have AV? Didn't it not occur to them? Oh, yeah, hold on. Do we need a firewall? I guess they did. They had the big fancy ones, you know, dual-skinned and everything else. Of course they did. When they talk about sophisticated evasion techniques, they're talking about sophisticated is because your firewall and your IPS are pretty much the same sort of technology. One's a whitelist, one's a blacklist, but it's tantamount to the same thing. They're all based on laws that only security vendors abide by. SMTP only goes on port 25. FTP only goes on port 20, is it? LDAP's on 389. NTP, I'm recovering now. SSL only. So they're based on these rules, and that is not how the internet works. The applications don't work like that, the users don't work like that, and the hackers, sure as eggs, see, I didn't swear this time, they don't work like that either. It's only us that have let you down and sold you the same old tat on renewals for the last 15 years. I also used to work for Checkpoint Software Technologies, so I'm almost entitled to say these things. What is an APT? This one's going to be a quick slide. It is a human with intent. What is a human with intent? Well, most people are motivated by money, politics, or naked women. That's the reason, right? If I'm going to get one or the other, I mean, you know, that's the whole reason most of us are here. Maybe naked men, but that's it. Okay. So that is what an APT is. A human. It's a human.
It's a red card.
Sorry.
Carry on.
I can't read the kanji down here. Right. So it's just a human with intent. And it takes a, you know, it's not, we all got suckered by Conficker, we all got suckered by I Love You. They were automated. That was an automated known vulnerability scampering around, and lots of people got done over by that. Some people still are. We still go into these POCs, still see Conficker trickling off on networks. And that was dumb. That was just a machine gun, bang, 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 bang. With APTs, it's a human being, and that human being has an intent. And the problem is when you sometimes look at your company, people don't always appreciate or have the imagination, and it's not easy for what that intent might be. It might be just to steal PayPal accounts or Amazon accounts or eBay accounts and stuff like that. So that's valuable. Or credit cards even, just from the company. You know, they might be going after intellectual property. There's a whole raft of reasons why people might be going on there, particularly if you're Playboy. Right. Kill chain. Palo Alto has been taken over by United States Air Force people of late, so lots of Americans are now heading up our company from the USA Air Force. So we use phrases like kill chain, which I'm not familiar with. I only learnt it last week. I'm not going to dwell on this too much. These are the different steps. You find out stuff, you developing malware. People sort of think there's little sweatshops in Russia and Far East Asian countries where they sit down and they sort of build these viruses and that sort of. That would be dumb, right? When you try and hack, you try and do the simplest thing possible. So you make the simplest thing possible because you don't want it to be tracked back to you. It's like if I'm going to kill somebody, I'm going to do it with a shotgun because it's a lot harder to trace than a sniper rifle with all the bells and whistles on, right? So develop malware, dumb malware is a preference, slightly change an existing piece of malware, something like that. Bypass the perimeter, piece of cake to bypass the perimeter. If I sent everyone in this room a PDF that said 50% off your next BMW or German car servicing, sign here to register, you would probably click on it. Especially if it looked right and the grammar and the text and everything was right, and somebody would click on it. There's no doubt the other guy was talking about it. They bypass it, infect the host. This is one of the things. If I've got past the firewall and I've got past the IPS and I've got past the antivirus, because getting past the antivirus is trivial, what's going to stop me at that stage? Nothing. Nothing's going to stop me. So communicate back, get control of it, use it as a launch point, and then steal something. That's what happened to Target. So Target were an American firm. They're a retailer. They had 170 million people sort of accounts stolen. Basically what happened was black pods. So this was a bit of software. So it's a point-of-sale systems were infected. So what happened was every time you swipe your credit card, that credit card data was immediately skimmed off and sent back to a database inside Target themselves. So, do I need my data center secured? It seems so. But this actual log, you can see it, and every day this system would email back saying, there's stuff in there. That's what a point-of-sale system looks like, in case you are a little confused. That's what a data center looked like. I bet none of you have ever seen that before. Yeah, it's a large room full of computers. It is important to secure these things. And a lot of things were lost. So, obviously, I don't need to tell you. I mean, everyone knows. First of all, the guy probably lost his job, or certainly had a bad night's sleep. The security IT administrator. There's all sorts of things that have gone wrong here in terms of company reputation and that sort of thing. And it's important to keep on top of it. How long have I got? Does that indicate something? Shares can go down as well as up. Oil rigs look a bit like this. That's a Windows 7 laptop. Mind the gap. So this was the most powerful company, that's the richest company in the world. They had an air gap. They had all the bells and whistles again, and they still got hacked. And that was because, people like me came in and sold them stuff, and they sort of believed it. What do we do? So I will. How many minutes is that in real terms? 1 minute. Okay. So our firewall, as you may imagine, does everything. It does firewalling. It does user-based firewalling. It controls an application. We treat Web 2.0 applications as applications. So Facebook is just a way of sharing data. God forbid we should look at it that way. Dropbox is FTP with knobs on. Calm yourselves. I don't want to scare you. So we do all that sort of stuff. We treat them as what they are. We have a whitelist. You then create a blacklist. So you have a great big long list of stuff you do want coming into the network. You have a great big long list of stuff you don't want coming into the network. And the firewall sort of goes, oh, look, that's SMTP. It's on port 10,000. I don't care because I'm not bound to port numbers. And it scans it for problems. It also does the same with all that Web 2.0 stuff. The other thing that we do is we do analyze executables. So an executable is downloaded through our firewall, gets sent up to a sandbox. We gather data from that, and we feed all that data back into the firewall. So if that executable gets detonated in the cloud, what it will do is go off to a bad malware site. It will try and do some IPS-related stuff. It will try and download extra files. It will do all this sort of stuff. We take that information and feed it back into the firewall as well. So the firewall sort of organically grows in a way to get more information. Applications are really dodgy. Vulnerabilities are something you need to concern yourself with. Unknown threats. Right. This is one last bit of the sales pitch. Because it monitors all 65,535 TCP and UDP ports all of the time, it sees everything, including what it doesn't understand. If it doesn't understand something, it tells you about it. There's 2% of all traffic on most networks is unknown UDP. And if you look at your traditional firewalls, they won't tell you what they don't understand because they just pass it through. Look how much you're missing. Stop me if you see one that looks exciting. Stop. So nearly 400 applications can deliver files. We scan for all sorts of things. So like I say, we scan for executables, we scan for APK files, we scan for Java files, we scan for Office files and that PDFs. what we find is we scan around 370,000 unknown files every day. 54% of them are not scanned by traditional AV, or not detected by traditional AV. That's because it's so easy to evade antivirus and that sort of stuff. Of that, about 270,000 are Windows executables. About 300 are APKs for Android devices and that sort of stuff. And then you've got the rest. I'm getting sternly looked at now. I'm dead. I'm gone. Buy our firewall, please. There's the stuff that it does. I'm finished. I'm going now. Thank you. Da, 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 da.